Hello, you're listening to What the Fuck Do We Know? Okay, so recently in the US, there's been a lot of cases of book banning. I believe that parents and members of school boards, I'm not very sure, have been requesting books to be taken from from libraries, be taken off the school curriculum, and be put under review in some cases, or in some cases just taken away and not be taught to students. I believe that this particular case began from like George Floyd, and after George Floyd happened, there was kind of a push and a move to teach more on systemic racism in schools. And I believe that a bunch of teachers decided to try to introduce books to classrooms, more older, of course.
So is it history books, social studies, or what is it?
Oh, yeah, historical books written by, like activists and like people that were part of the civil rights movement.
Schools.
Yes, schools.
Do they read books written by activists?
No, but as I said, teachers started to try to introduce some books.
Wow, interesting.
Not just textbooks, but just like literature that would help students understand like the history of America, even if it's a little bit tainted, and also trying to teach history as they felt it was ought to be taught, without like whitewashing. And I believe that for a lot of parents, they felt that this was not good for their children, especially parents of white children. I think only parents of white children, because they thought that it was teaching the child to be, to feel
Guilt.
Yeah, white guilt.
White guilt.
And I don't know. I don't think that was the intention, and I don't think a lot of the children felt that way, because a lot of children did protest against this book bannings, including white children. So the parents believe that, and I believe it started from there, and it kind of extended its way through, critical race theory
CRT.
and blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's the thing. It's very hard to discuss it because we are not in the US. It's
Sure.
really hard to actually get a gist of how it feels like from the inside. Because, I could see one side says that, yes, let's just be more conscious about our history and let's be more critical, but like reasonably critical. And another side says that you're making our kids guilty and mentally basically damage our kids. And I could see how it can get too far. But
the question is, if it's the truth, is that a problem though?
Making kids
No, because
feel
the teacher
guilty.
is not responsible for how the kid feels about the reality of racism, right?
But
In
it
the
depends
US.
how you suggest information. If you
Why
say,
is it suggestion? I'm talking about like giving information, because they're not suggesting information. The teachers were not planning to do that. Their intent was to present the information as it was, because a lot of it is, so to speak, softened for kids.
that's the ways. There are different ways to frame information, right? In the same way as there are different ways to frame a question.
Sure, but
And
if it's a fact, if it's just a statement
a
of fact, if it's a statement of fact, not of course, people have tone and people do
Yes.
deliver information differently, but if it's a statement of fact, like this is what happened.
But again, or you can say your history lesson can become white person, George Washington did that, owned slaves, then white person, I don't know who, another, and like white person, it is a fact.
So what is the problem?
But do you need to mention it every time you...
What do you mean? Mention it what? How?
I don't know, a white person did something wrong, right?
But you're not just mentioning white person did something wrong. You're mentioning this person did this.
And by
And
the
that
way, they
person
are
is
white.
white.
It's a
Yes.
fact, right?
Yeah, it's a fact.
But not always it is a relevant thing to say.
No, but when you're talking about racism in the US, it is
When
relevant.
you talk about racism, yes.
In the US, it is relevant because it's a discussion on race, and it's a discussion on, mostly I think it was more of a discussion on how systemic racism is something that they wanted to talk about what systemic racism is and why it is something that people are talking about now, and why it's something that should be, is worthy of mentioning. I believe that was the case. Now, if a statement of fact is blah, blah, blah person owned slaves and this person was white, and blah, blah person was horrible to their slaves and this person was white, it's just the fact, And
No, if it is a discussion about racism, then yes. But if it is a general discussion about history, sometimes it is relevant. Most of the time, it is not relevant.
What? No. Why? What do you think? So, what do you mean? So, take Columbus for example, because
Okay.
this has become like a big topic, and people like he is celebrated by a lot of people, by the Italians, by Americans. They have a Columbus Day. I don't know if they still have it because a lot of people have been pushing to change it, but they celebrate this guy. But this guy is responsible for what they would call I don't want to say what I would call because I don't know the history well, but a genocide of a group of people, a big group of people. His impact on the people that lived there already is pretty bad. And so when you teach about Columbus, a lot of people just go like, he discovered this and he discovered that. But what happened in the wake of his discovery? What was it that followed
I
the
agree
discovery?
that it has to be mentioned.
So yes, so the teacher is saying, okay, this is what Columbus did. He came here and he saw this place or whatever. But here are the things that came after his discovery of the place. Now, if those bad things, I use quotes here because I don't want to say what is bad or good in this place. I don't know. But if those bad things outweigh the good thing of discovery, is it the teacher's fault?
I mean, here I don't see a problem. Like, here I totally on board with you that it has to be mentioned. And we don't actually need to even, it's not the job of a teacher, maybe even to critically, it is their job to critically assess it, but it's not their job to tell you whether they're the good or bad, whether there was more good or bad from the person. It's more about their impact on history. But coming back to CRT and where it can actually get controversial, it's when if kids
Excuse me,
start associating themselves with those white people in the past, and they start thinking that there is some kind of hint towards collective responsibility.
Okay, but when you say that, okay, I understand that, but that is not the teacher's place. The teacher is not responsible for that. The teacher delivers information. The teacher says, this is what is, and this is how this came to be. And if that child does find some kind of relation there, it is the child. The teacher is not responsible for it.
Depends on how the teacher frames the thing, because I can see it. I don't know if it was true, but I heard that there was a case where a teacher decided to role play slavery, and like black kids play the role of slaves and white kids, if I'm not mistaken.
I've seen it.
And like, I feel it is a little bit too far.
I agree, but we're not talking about that. I'm not talking about
that's why I don't know how common the problem is.
I said just
how common it is.
That's why I just say statement of fact. But if a teacher,
statements of fact, I'm fine with it.
If a teacher teaches fact from whatever kind of literature, if the teacher just delivers factual information, a child can still feel something from that factual information. That's why a lot of history is whitewashed, so that people don't feel that much pain from don't see the negative in history that much.
No, I absolutely agree. It has to be mentioned, but I would even go further that the teacher does. I think it is their job to give some critical analysis of what actually happened, not just state a fact that Columbus, discovered or invaded native.
Well, I agree. I do think that, I don't know if the teacher should give a critical analysis, but if the children are old enough, the teacher should create the space for critical analysis.
Well, yes.
To
and
happen.
Like you really have to go not just invaded, but what does it actually entail? It means that, because kids don't think about, they don't have an association with invasion with hundreds of thousands dead. Okay, there were probably less people there, but thousands of dead. And you actually need to, I think, it depends on the age of the child, I guess, but you need to give that image, that what it actually means in reality. It's not that just,
But I don't know. If you're talking about CRT, I think that it's not taught to children anyway. I think that it's like a university level program. I don't think it's
absolutely.
high school. It's in high school even, right? But yeah, anyway, to go back to where we started. So yeah, parents pushed against causing their children to feel guilty. And it extended, of course, as with anything. And it also touches on parental rights when it comes to education, what parents have the right to there.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
And it goes on to, LGBTQ things where people started to write books that include LGBTQ characters, and parents started to go, no, we don't want that. We don't want our children to say this. And this Florida thing, this don't say gay thing, it also includes that, where they cannot like teach or mention this like LGBTQ identities in classes for different ages. They keep on extending the age. So I don't know where it is right now.
Well, I think we should actually talk about parental rights. This is an important topic because I think I'm pretty extreme when it comes to this question. Because for me, knowledge is closer to a civil right, I guess.
What is the right statement in this, like, as knowledge? So everyone has the right to knowledge?
Everyone has the right to knowledge.
Against
yes.
their will?
But the thing is that kids don't have the agency, right?
Right.
And that's where the problem and the conflict starts.
Whoa.
That, for instance, I think a good analogy is with the right to safety. And if parents cannot provide some minimal level of safety, and it depends on the context, depends on the age, it evolves. But if they cannot provide that, the government can take away parental rights. And I think the same kind of logic could be applied with knowledge for me. But then again, people start arguing what is knowledge, what is not knowledge, what is generally acceptable, what is not generally acceptable. In my opinion, there are some things, history, let's set it aside, it is controversial. But if we talk about evolution theory, in my opinion, it has to be obligatory.
Why?
And it has to be enforced. Because, in my opinion, there is enough evidence to say that this is the reality.
Okay, but so if we think of that, we have majority of the world's population believes in some form of creationism. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yes. So different forms of religions have different beliefs, but most of them believe in some sort of creationism. So if we have like a little society, let's use the US because this happens mostly in the US, right? I'm always surprised by it, but I think more Americans, since I started talking to South Americans, I don't feel comfortable saying Americans for just people in the US. But we don't have a word for just like
USanians,
like gringos. Yeah, but okay, most people in the US,
citizens of the US.
Okay, sure, it's too long. Most people who live okay, in the US, I think that there are more Christians than none.
Probably.
Yeah,
I'm
so
not sure,
let's take a little town in the US.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, right? And they have to decide on what's going to be taught. Should it be the government who just says, no, this is relevant, this is relevant, this is relevant, we're going to teach it? Or the people in the town should be able to have a say in what is relevant? And if most of them are Christians and they believe in creationism, and they think, well, creationism is more relevant than evolution theory, wouldn't
well,
it
that's
be
the
case?
thing. It is a controversial topic, but let's make maybe an analogy. If this small community,
By the way, you're not very good at analogies, so
I'm very good. You don't know how to make analogies. You don't know how to appreciate analogies.
okay,
That's
go ahead, give your
A
analogy.
small community,
Okay.
and let's say they think that female circumcision is okay. What? It is a thing.
Oh, he has no circumcision.
Circumcision?
Yes.
Okay, should the government intervene?
If most people think that,
Most people in the community think
well,
that.
then you'd have to think then that is the government an elected government?
The government is elected, but on a
By-
higher level. It's not local government, it's federal government.
And the government's elected by whom? People who don't think
By the entire
that,
country.
Okay, and most people in this country don't think
Yes.
that. Well, then, if the government if it runs that way, then the federal government does have a right to impose and say no.
But we could argue that it shouldn't be decided on the federal level. It should be decided on local
That's
level.
what people talk about with abortions. But sometimes some things trump some other things, and they go on.
Well, exactly.
But the thing is that in this federal level would also be assuming that, most people in the federal level that elect in the federal level believe that female circumcision is bad.
Yes,
Okay.
I assume. So, but basically this general principle is that there are things that are so important, like civil rights and liberties, that they are covered on federal level. And And like, okay, we are very US centered here, but they're just, the government has to provide them no matter what. And then you have your decentralization, and local issues can be decided locally, but there should be some basis that is covered. And I argue that the knowledge and right to knowledge should be one of those things, along with civil rights, other civil rights.
So who chooses what people learn
Well,
in school?
the government has to do that.
The
But
government elected by a majority.
well, yes, because there couldn't be any other way.
So the majority is basically what the majority thinks is okay.
Well, it's not that
'Cause
direct.
if you have a progressive government, most high chances they believe in evolution theory.
Yes.
They will advocate for more teaching of that and less of religious studies or Christianity or whatever kind
Well,
of.
in a
studies.
in a democratic society, there is no other way to do it.
Why?
right?
How about every local system voting on it?
No, but that's what I argue against. Well, my goal is to make it as widespread as
Evolution
possible.
theory?
Well, not necessarily evolution theory, but this is one of important things because, again, I want this government to create the common program, but it should. I'm not talking about history here. History, it should be like limited. It should only cover things that we are. Okay, in my opinion, there are some things we are more or less absolutely sure.
Oh, I
In
would
like maths,
use
like
absolute.
physics,
Okay.
evolution theory. There is just the evidence is so overwhelming that there is not much space for debates. But then history, I feel like a lot of it is not debatable. A lot of it is debatable. And here there is much more gray area.
Wait a minute. A lot of history is debatable? What?
A lot of history is debatable. And
In what sense? Like
debatable in terms of value judgments. In terms of facts, some of it is debatable, but not all of it, of course. Not most of it. Did you get me?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
I get what you're saying. Then we come to religious studies. If a lot of people do, if a majority is chosen conservative government and they decide, have your drink, and they decide that they would rather have Jesus in the schools, as they usually do decide, what happens then if the federal government is Jesus-centric?
Well, of course, in reality, it won't be so direct. It shouldn't be that easy to change the program. It should take years to change it. So I would make it more complicated, so it wouldn't be possible to change it within one election season. So, but then if you have conservative society, if the entire society wants to live like that, we don't really have any other option.
The entire society.
Well, the
probably
majority,
doesn't
the
want
vast majority. I don't know. In Iran, probably the vast majority is religious. So should the US or Europe intervene and enforce whatever, like secular societies, secular schools? My opinion is no.
The US.
Well, Europe.
Of course, no.
So
I don't know. I think I do think that evolution theory should be taught because I wasn't taught as in depth as I would have wanted it to be taught because I grew up in a religious country and we had Christian religious studies, which I don't know why. People go to church, they learn about God in church.
Oh.
Why the fuck am I going to school to do the same thing? But I went to a school owned by a church in the beginning, so there's that as well. But yeah, so I do think evolution theory should be taught more, but I have a problem with, and I do agree with you about parental rights. Honestly, quite frankly, I don't know that parents should have
any rights.
Any rights.
Wow.
Honestly, about education. I really don't think so because a lot of parents have these value systems. It's fine. A lot of parents have these value systems that they have and they want to impose on their children, usually. Education should be devoid of this value system. I think that education should cover a lot of areas for most kids. I really don't have this age thing, but we'll talk about it later. But I think education should cover a lot of areas for most kids. I think that religion should be taught as analyzed, but not as God says blah, 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 God says blah, blah, blah.
Okay, yeah.
So I think that education shouldn't consider people's personal values at all. because it's information, it's knowledge, it's things that we have, things that are based in fact that need to be delivered to people. And I believe that it should disregard your value system and you should learn. However that education impacts you is not the responsibility of the teacher. The teacher is delivering information and that's it.
Right. But a lot of people, religious people, would probably argue that it is not about facts, it is about faith. And belief is more important than
they can
facts.
go fuck themselves. Kidding.
I'm surprised I'm arguing this side.
I love the religious people.
I love Jesus.
I actually don't have a problem with religious people. I just think that, I really, really strongly believe in total separation of religion and many things.
The same for me, like secular government. But coming back to your original point, I don't think I would go that far saying that parents shouldn't have any rights when it comes to education. But I do think right now we really underestimate and appreciate this topic, basically, because kids are very, very, sensitive in the earliest stages of life, and really how much effort and resources are put in them during the first years, it defines them for the entire life.
Sure.
And right now, we really don't have that many standards. Like first, before kids go to school, like really parents can do whatever. Even then yes, I know that some countries have legislation that parents have to give their kids to school. And like in some countries, homeschooling is not even allowed. But still, I feel like the legislation here is quite loose. And basically, parents define their kids. And a lot of parents fuck them up.
That's what school is supposed to be for, I think. School is supposed to break that. Because I wish that we lived in a world where parents allowed their kids to form their own values, but it's almost impossible. So school is supposed to break that. I think you're supposed to go to school and supposed to learn and then begin to figure out shit for yourself. I didn't have that opportunity because I had values that were imposed on me. And also school kind of propagated those values because the people who chose what happened in school were also people with similar values as my parents. And I believe that really stunted the amount of things I could have learned. It's very frustrating for me to talk to people who grew up in different systems and understand that a lot of things that I know I had to learn by myself. And many other things, many people, they just learned it in school.
But we shouldn't forget that someone will have to make that curriculum and decide what kids learn. And the government will also have their agenda. And like, for instance, history, patriotism, and just history is always usually biased.
Well, that's the thing. It's like history shouldn't. Well, of course, I'm not saying that it's possible to have this totally unbiased system of learning. But when we involve parents, we have all these arguments. Right now, we don't live in societies where everybody has the same values anymore. At least there's always like someone without and someone who is an exception, right? And when we have this parents having like a say in what their students learn, we have this clash of values leads to some kind of majority thing. Students miss out on important things. Sex education was not even a thing in my entire school.
Here.
It's ridiculous. Students miss out on so many things because their parents think they know what they must learn. So I think like learning, and I don't limit what information. I think every piece of information, what people think is bad, people is good. I think people should be taught in schools at different levels, sure. But I think that information should be available.
But that's not realistic, is it?
It isn't realistic. You
can't learn everything. You have to choose.
No. Of course not.
That are taught.
Not that like you must learn everything, but I mean it should be accessible. I do think that people should begin to.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. I do think that people should begin to choose what they want to learn at some point. But in some scope, if you choose this scope of learning, everything, well, as much as is possible to be accessible to you, should be.
Okay, let's come back to banning books.
Okay, let's do that after the break.
Okay.
So I needed to stretch my legs because my pants are too tight.
Good to know. I hope everyone enjoyed this information.
It was useful information. All right. Book banning, you were saying.
Are you stretched enough for the following discussion?
Am I stretched enough?
Yes.
That's not why people stretch their legs, to be stretched. is wrong with you?
Okay, books. Let's maybe generalize it to information.
Information
because books
banning?
contain information.
Oh, no shit.
Right. So what do you think about banning, restricting access to information? Are there any cases where it can be justified? And I think, I don't know, it probably is too mainstream, but Nazism is usually where people start, right?
Well, yeah, I guess. What else, actually? Let's think about it. What else has been so bad for us? Like, well, because, there's
Nuclear
the thing.
weapons.
Well, there's a, well,
Yes.
oh, well, there's a thing with, the Belgians did in the Congo. We don't talk about it because it's black people, but whatever.
Like the genocide?
Yeah.
Like,
It was the Belgians in the Congo.
okay.
Yeah, and
I
they're
don't
still
think I know about it.
and they're still doing the chocolate there.
I don't I
If
have
you
no
wanna
idea
ask
about
me
it.
which country I don't like,
Belgium?
yeah, there
Fucking
you go.
Belgium. So small and so evil.
Okay, but anyway, yeah. So people usually think of Nazism, but nuclear. Why do we think of this as a great evil?
It's not a great evil, but this is the information that is generally
okay.
should be restricted
To countries.
to countries. It's not just how like atoms work, but how nuclear weapons
Okay.
work, and like
Because I was like, how will they restrict that? I think anybody can any country, if they have enough finances, they can figure it out.
no, it's not that easy.
No, they just need to get a scientist that would. Would be.
It takes around years to do that.
Yeah,
North Korea took
Yeah,
years.
I don't think it's gonna be quick, but I think it's possible.
It's possible, but it's not that you should publish on the internet.
But let's so with nuclear, I don't know. Now that that's in the question, I don't think every country should have access to nuclear weapons. Definitely, there is just too much risk for some countries.
I think it's definitely a problem.
So I don't know, but let's come back to
I have another
what
idea.
What?
DNA of viruses.
I know. I do think, okay, let's go back to the question, information, is it risky? Yes, it's risky to have all information available to everybody. But do I think it should be? Yes. Remember
disagree.
you said knowledge is a right.
But there are exceptions.
No. So what I think is the creation of bodies rather than exceptions, but the creation of bodies to manage or control this knowledge's application is better than the restriction of the knowledge.
No, but the thing is, okay, why do I think that Nazism should not be restricted? And why I think nuclear weapons and like technology and DNA of viruses and potentially even AI, to be honest, the source code.
AI
it's
actually,
controversial.
no. With me, it's not actually. AI might be the
now
one
it's not.
where AI might be the one where I like really, I might change my mind on my all information available because I'm worried about it now.
I mean, we shouldn't be too strict. Like we
Sure,
have
sure.
freedom of speech, we have restrictions, we have exceptions, right? The difference is, for me, Nazism. Okay, even if we teach Nazism at school, the worst thing that can happen. Okay, not the worst thing.
Is the Holocaust part 2? What?
Not the worst thing, but the realistic thing that will happen is that 0.1 to 1% of kids will actually start sympathizing with these ideas.
Sure, because we have done a lot to change culture and society.
Yes. So the thing is that it's not gonna change a lot in our society. They will not get power. Yes, maybe right-wing parties will get a little bit more support, but generally speaking, it's not that big of a deal.
I think you underestimate, or maybe you overestimate like the morality or the ethics of a society.
Okay, 5% become Nazi. Okay.
Honestly, I really feel like in Europe there is a wave, and
there is a wave.
It scares
it's
me.
right wing. It's not like Nazi.
No, but the thing, it can grow though. You need to find the enemy. But go on.
Okay. The difference between this and nuclear weapons is that, or DNA of viruses, is that 1% of Nazis will not do much in a democracy, in a strong democracy.
Sure.
But even a bunch of people, I don't know, a dozen of people who have access to nuclear weapons can actually make a huge difference and destroy half of the planet.
I
That's
agree.
where the problem starts.
So I agree with you. I do see the danger in those things. Do you hear it?
I think it's your fridge.
Okay. I see the danger, I see how that's why I had a pause, because generally if you ask me this question, I think that we need to have this information available to everybody. I think it's a risk. I do believe that we accept that risk, but it is knowledge, is information, and we cannot withhold it from some people.
Why?
And I'll come to it. We cannot withhold it from some. Wait for me. Let me land.
You said I should interrupt you more, so. Haha.
Where was I?
You were
not listening to me.
You were leading to why.
Okay, so I do think information should be available to everyone. I don't think that the big problem for me is the people who get to choose who gets information and who doesn't. That scrutiny for me, I don't really, get it. Because I think that there is a chance that people scrutinize and people decide. Some people are smarter and they will handle this information better, and some people are just dumber. That's not great. It's not. That doesn't work for me.
Okay, but with DNA of viruses,
that's what.
biologists
Wait,
should
I haven't
get it.
I haven't got there yet. So that's what I would say normally. That's why when you talk to me about, like, if you ask me about, some kind of Nazi, what's the word for the
Mein
books?
Kampf.
Yeah. But what is it? It's like a
Propaganda.
Yeah. Okay. So some kind of propaganda book out there, being in libraries and being in like state libraries and very accessible. I think they should be.
Agreed.
I have no problem with that. But when we talk about something like nuclear power, I still think that there should be access. I just believe that we need to have bodies that have good control and have like enough power to be able to like restrict its application, but not its knowledge. Because what happens is we have powerful countries who have allowed themselves the knowledge, allowed themselves the application, and then they start to pick and choose who shouldn't and who should.
That's exactly what happened.
That's what we have.
But you
exactly.
agreed earlier that you believe that you don't want everyone to
Yeah,
have nuclear
I don't
weapons.
want everyone to have nuclear weapons, but I don't think that powerful countries who have got nuclear weapons should decide to start choosing who should get the knowledge. But nevertheless, let me finish. It should be like one of the housewife shows. Let me talk.
Well, it doesn't work without a video.
Well, yes. Okay. Why not? They can feel my. They can.
I don't
feel
think
my,
so.
They can feel
No.
my rage here. Okay, no, but I was going to say. So, I don't think that I don't want every country to have nuclear power. But do I want them to know how to have nuclear power? Sure. Then we have a more unified. So until then, for now, we don't have it yet. But then we have a more unified body that actually has the ability to restrict the application, but not restrict the
how?
knowledge. I said we don't have it yet.
No, but how theoretically could it happen?
No, if we have a unified government, if UN was a better thing.
Okay, unified
Yeah,
government.
a unified government that would actually have real consequences for like breaking law in this
The
unified
thing is,
government.
the problem here is it's okay with normal crimes. We can wait till people break the law and then punish them. But there are some things where the damage is irreversible.
No, we can monitor it and we can see when the application has started.
Nuclear power,
Yeah.
yes, because
Also, DNA
because of the technology. DNA, no, it's very easy.
It's more difficult to monitor.
It's impossible to monitor.
It is not possible.
It's like the technology is so easy, like CRISPR-Cas9.
Sure,
It's
I
so
know.
easy and available just in terms of knowledge and skill. Like
Right.
a high school student can do. Okay, not a high school, but I mean, a university student can do that. What are you gonna do? You're gonna wait till you have a bioweapon and then somebody will try to enforce them?
So what are you gonna do instead? Stop people from reading about it?
Stop. No, you should read about genetics. You shouldn't publish the DNA sequence of
You're getting
of a
really,
virus.
you're getting
Yes, I
really
don't want a bioweapon, okay? You
No,
got
but
me.
what do you mean not publish? It's already what? Nobody should publish it at all? Is that what you're saying?
The DNA
Mhm.
sequence, yes, of a virus. You can publish about genetics.
But
Publish.
the thing is about
publish
this, about the
studies.
DNA sequence of a virus. If one person has discovered it, don't you think more people can?
Yes, they can, but you shouldn't make it easier. I'm sorry, you shouldn't make it easier.
I don't think it should be easier, but I just think it's possible. I think that the information will get out there. The information should probably be allowed to be out there. I don't have a very firm stance when it comes to these things that I do really consider existential risks, like nuclear technology and like nuclear weapon technology and DNA viruses and AI. I don't have a firm stance there because although I don't like this picking and choosing of who gets knowledge or who gets information.
I figured out.
Yeah, so I don't like
You just don't like gatekeepers.
Yeah, I don't like gatekeeping at all.
But I think that you have to kind of make exceptions here.
And that's why I say I don't have a firm position yet, but as of now, I do believe we should work on a more unified government that has better reach in all parts of the world. It probably won't happen in my lifetime.
But even within, right now we have government on country level, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, people still commit crimes. They're still like, I don't know, I don't want to be judgmental, but like crazy people who just go and do something.
That's offensive.
School shootings and stuff. And there will be people like
there are crimes that are that.
Time.
But there are crimes like that. And then there's like spreading a virus.
No, but the thing is, that there is no really difference when it comes to the person and the psychology it takes to do this. If you're ready to have a mass shooting, you're ready to launch the virus. You don't care about your life.
I do think that in countries where where people have like this information more available, I think that there is better monitoring if someone's about to spread a virus. I don't know, but I believe that there would be, because the thing with the guns is that sometimes they do know that this person is a risk, but they don't handle it. They don't go to,
because there are millions of people at risk.
Exactly, who are risks to. Yes.
And how can you monitor all of them?
Yeah, but no, with this virus, you say it's very easy, but there are not that many people as with the guns.
Okay, yes, it's not that straightforward.
Yes, so,
but also it's like with a gun you can kill 100 people.
Yes.
With a virus, you can kill the entire planet.
Yes, which is why it would be on a priority, don't you think so?
Which is why we should ban it.
I don't know. I don't think that people who already have this information should start saying, well, we got it, and now you cannot handle it. I don't like that.
You don't like that, but that's necessary.
But doesn't mean I've said that it shouldn't be banned. I don't have a firm position here. I just really don't like gatekeeping. And I really think that people have the right to know things. If we have a risk there is a risk that it imposes on us, definitely. And I don't know, to some extent, to some cases, I'm ready to accept that risk. But now we have more existential things, things that are risk to our existence. So my position could shift a little bit because I'm not, not an open person, So
well, you should be.
I said I'm not an open person.
Oh, double negation. It's not good in English. It doesn't work in English. I've been taught that. Okay, it's cool.
Okay. All right. No, but yeah, so I'm open to having some kind of restriction on it, but for now, I just don't like gatekeeping. I cannot deal with gatekeeping information.
Okay, I just think that your... okay, it's going to sound harsh, but your stance on this governmental body, it is naive to think that it's possible to even create this thing.
What sounded harsh? Naive?
Yes. It is a harsh. I don't like people calling me naive, so.
But you are naive in a lot of cases.
I'm not.
You are. There are many things that you are naive in.
I've never heard anyone saying that to me. So we already have governments. They can't enforce gun laws. There are constantly people kill each other. I
said I don't think it will happen in my lifetime. I said, well, I'm not saying that it is so possible. I'm saying what would be better.
Would you want Hamas to have nuclear weapons? Or to know how to make them?
Oh my God.
No, I'm serious.
Of course I wouldn't like Hamas to
would you want them to learn
weapons.
How to do that? Not make them?
No, but there is one thing of knowing and having the means. That's another thing.
Okay, but the thing is...
That is my point. But I'm not saying that is something that will happen. I'm saying that is what would be ideal. If this information is blocked from Hamas at this point, I understand why it is. But I'm saying the ideal thing for me would be to have a better universal government and more access to information.
Okay.
That is
before we have this government, you wouldn't give Hamas this information, right?
Sure.
Okay.
But my point is that what we should be working towards is access to information for everyone and better monitoring and better control of different governments and how they act.
But what
with this
would that
information.
monitoring entail? Because that's like, how can we achieve that monitoring? It's gonna be achieved through AI and like cameras everywhere. Would you be willing to attach a camera to your, I don't know, face, and that AI can follow you everywhere, anywhere?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Actually, that's what I thought like
I'm kidding.
recently. No, I mean, actually, I think we are right now. It is really against our rights, we think. But I think in the future we could really change our stance on it.
It is, yes. But no, with AI actually, well, I don't think that's what we want to talk about today. But my big fear with AI, we've talked about this before, is how people will use it to achieve whatever they want to achieve. And I don't worry too much about like simple things like tracking and stuff like that.
Simple things.
Right. I mean, I take this stuff, my phone and my watch, and everywhere I go.
No, but it's still
It is
one level higher.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, I don't really care about that stuff. I think about people using AI to achieve some kind of goal. That's where I believe there is a problem. But no, I don't know how it will be implemented. I believe that if we have a unified government and sanctions are actually something that work well, then we could force governments to not do things that
I
would
think
work
it's
against
impossible,
them.
just physically impossible. And also, like with nuclear weapons, we get lucky that it is a complicated technology and it requires some resources that are very rare and easily traceable, if it's a word. And there could be other technologies, and I believe like AI and DNA, like engineering, those technologies are much easier, and you can't just track them from your satellite. It's just impossible technically. And without that, it's like, really, imagine that instead of guns, people would have like nuclear weapons. The planet would have already, I don't know, probably still, I still think we would have been alive, but we would have,
maybe everybody having nuclear weapons is a way to save us from actually having a nuclear
are you
attack.
serious?
Because why would I attack if I'm a country? Why would I attack you if I know you have nuclear
No,
weapons?
country. Okay, are we talking about individuals or countries?
No. Well, individuals.
Well, why do people have mass shooting at schools?
No. But if I came to you, like, I'm not coming to you for a duel. And nuclear weapons are a totally different thing from guns. I'm sorry. If you use the nuclear weapon, when people do mass shootings, a lot of people have very different mental states when they do mass shootings. Some of them are ready to die, sure, in this situation. But also a lot of people just shoot without wanting to die themselves. They just have some kind of a different mental state, but nevertheless, their goal is not to kill themselves. If you'd use a nuclear weapon, you're killing yourself as well. If you're a person dropping a nuclear bomb, where?
Depends on the size of bomb and how far your target is.
Your neighbor?
Well, or your neighbor, yeah.
No, but
you
also,
should shoot your neighbor.
But speaking about countries, I believe that if I'm a country and you are a country, and I know that you have a nuclear weapon, I wouldn't attack you. So actually, everyone having nuclear weapons might be the way. I don't think so, no, because I think like somewhere like Hamas, they'll drop it in Israel.
Yes, you need stable governments, but still, it makes things much more complicated. Okay,
I don't feel comfortable about laughing when I said Hamas dropping nuclear bombs in Israel. Why are you laughing? It's a serious thing.
Well, anyone dropping a nuclear weapon is a serious thing. Yeah, why Hamas?
No, just because it's very current,
Well, okay, so coming back to banning books.
Yes.
Against banning books, against restricting information, unless, in my opinion, it is some emerging risks. I'm much more open here. Are there any other cases where, like the more traditional cases, where it would be justified to ban access to information?
What information?
Justified to ban access to information.
Existing information?
Ban access to information.
Oh, access. Sorry. Oh yeah, no. I think something we could talk about for like a minute is age restrictions. Because part of the banning thing is like people going, I don't want my 7-year-old to talk about gay people, or I don't want my 8-year-old to talk about different pronouns or trans people, etc. That is what people usually use.
Well, okay. The problem is that I think a lot about what I would do with my kids or kids generally speaking, but I don't really have any experience with kids at all. Like, I don't even have any friends who have kids. So, but I would definitely not, I would be like very open, I think, about anything, like really. But at the same time, I wouldn't want this information to be enforced on kids when they don't, if they don't ask about it.
No, wait, what? No, that's not good, because what happens is when something like that happens, I as a black person walking on the street will have a child of 7-year-olds come up to me and try to clean my
there
skin.
are some basic things. So you should let them know that there are like gay people, there are trans people, there are black people, there are all sorts of people.
They're black people.
What? There are different skins of color, etc. But you can just say that, or you can have an entire course on it in the first grade.
No, but that's not what people are doing. They're not having an entire course on it, because you don't have an entire course on white people, but they're just having, more stories and more like teachings that involve these different people. So it's not just like only this type of people exist until you're 15 years old, A lot of it
I agree that,
because a lot of it were stories, a lot of the books that parents didn't want were stories that included like some kind of LGBTQ couple.
Oh, that I'm fine. Stories are fine.
Or character, and a lot of people were like, no, they don't need to hear about this at this time, and it's like, what?
I'm talking more about like these extreme cases where you would again, this probably are from the US, of course, and they are probably extreme, where you have a tutor basically asking to define your gender like as a child, or not define your gender.
I actually don't mind that. Because
why?
Because some children early, they begin to feel this kind of gender dysphoria, and I think that if a teacher, if I wouldn't mind it, my child doesn't have to. I don't like a teacher to go like, not define your gender or whatever, like, or have some kind of critical analysis of gender with an 8-year-old who doesn't understand the fuck most shit. But if a teacher can, create a space where someone who has questions of their gender feels comfortable, because 8-year-old is not too early to question your gender. Because I've spoken to trans people and I asked them about it, and it started quite early, looking at their body and feeling out of place. So I'm not saying they should have a whole, course about it, but I don't mind a teacher in a class of 8-year-olds saying, introduce yourself and your pronoun, or introduce yourself or something like that. I don't mind it, because when I raise a child, 4 or 3, or whenever the child can understand what he and she are, I'll also help them understand that there is also they. And there are people who are, there are people who might look one way, but they're another way. It doesn't really matter. And I will do that for my child as early as possible. So I don't think that at 6 or 7 years old in school, it's a bad thing. I don't think you should force a child to tell me, what is your pronoun? How do you know, things like
I just think that education should really be, and that's probably not what it is right now, but it should be much more gender neutral. And when imagine if we have a gender neutral school, would that be a problem that kids like at 8 years old will not have to name their pronouns if there are no restrictions?
I don't know if gender neutral is the word, but just kind of
like
gender regardless, so to speak. Yes, just disregarding gender. That would be what would be ideal for me, but I don't know what gender neutral means.
Gender neutral is just like there are no stereotypes that like
sure,
boys
I agree.
Boys or like 100%, play these toys.
That is definitely something that should happen.
Or like,
in school.
oh girl, you're so pretty, and a boy, you're so brave, courageous.
100%. I think most people that I know.
If we get rid of that, do we really need these discussions till teenage years?
What about
gender? If we have gender, what I call it gender neutral environment.
Because they will still have, outside of school time, and they spend a lot of time in school. So I do think that a lot of people grow up in families that don't, I know that a lot of people grow up in families that don't allow them to express themselves. Kids know a lot about themselves early in their life, and they know how to start hiding.
I didn't.
Okay. Okay. And they know how to start hiding the things that they know that people in their family, for example, don't want to see, or they don't want to but I feel like we should begin to think of school also as a safe space for people, because children spend a lot of time in school, and they do need an escape from that. But we are really, I think, well, have we gone away from what we're talking about?
Yes, we have. But we
Okay.
started with school, so
I
there
guess
is
it's
some common
it's a good time to
denominator.
end it.
Yes.
How do we end? We don't know how to end yet.
I don't know, but I want to pee, so I think it's a good ending point.